Well, hello and welcome back to Darkstorm Rising. Ian here, and today we explore Gore in all its fascinating glory. The storyteller that's going to help me today is going to be a gene stealer, and we're going to look at the story that he's been through. Everybody fears the gene stealers when they're rode up on the opposite side of the board, especially with the Broodlord, and especially if they're in the Vanguard formation. Everybody knows what's coming in the next few minutes. But now to tell a story to make things even more imposing, and are we going to have blood dripping down his arm from where he's just eviscerated open his opponent? Or is he going to be feasting recently on one of his fallen victims and there's blood all around his maw? Or maybe even just sliced them clean in two and there are remnants falling to the ground, blooded and bleeding around him in a sea of carnage. We're going to have a look at how to explore all that and maybe get some ideas together so where you can put that on your bases and maybe your foe's more terrified as well. So really, to have a look at everything, we're going to have to go over to the table and have a look. So here's my little jungle friend. This is my take on gene stealers for my army. Very jungle orientated, very dark greens in colour. And as you can see, he needs decorating. His base is nicely done, but now we need to move on to the miniature itself and try and make him look a little bit more, or maybe a little bit less friendly. Okay, so where are we going to start? So the tools that we're going to be using today are a Reaper's miniature figure case, but you could use a takeaway carton once it's been washed out. Still one of Mum's plates, and don't tell her that you borrowed it. Obviously I'm not advocating such an act. We're also going to need some Yoo-hoo glue. This is the main ingredient here. A couple of quid off eBay for a tube that's enormous and will last you a lifetime. And then the two reds that we're going to use both give you quite different effects, but we'll have a look at both. We have Green Stuff's True Blood and Army Shader's Quick Shade, but both do give very good results. An old tatty brush that we can stipple with, and a toothpick, a matchstick, or in this case a broken cotton bud. So the next step is to now start to mix some blood and start to look at thinking about getting it on the miniature. Right, so it's a fairly straightforward process, and that is just chucking a blob of glue. And probably if you are going to do this, probably to do a group of miniatures at a time is more economical because you'll make enough blood to go around. And the first one we're going to look at is the red tone. This gives us a very, I'm going to put maybe for this amount of glue, 4 drops I think. Maybe, oh, let's go 5 or 6. This gives you quite a dark, used old blood colour look. And maybe might be a little bit dark for you, but if you're going to put it on things like internal organs or giblets, something that's abdominal, it may be a quite a nice colour to just pop off a few little bits in there and just give it a bit of that old deoxygenated blood look around about it. And you can see it's now starting to already string, and you can see that that's going to go on lovely. Okay, now I want to brighten it up a little bit, so I would probably add a little bit of red in there from the True Blood. Now you can just go vibrant True Blood, which we'll show you in a second. I'm just sort of mixing colours here so you can see the range you can get from them. That's now getting a little bit old to use, but you can see the lovely rich red in there and how that's going to look amazing on your figure. So the first thing we're going to do before we even go there is one, clean my fingers, but also I want to actually get some blood onto the miniature in a bit more specific in areas before we start to use the sticky stuff. Right, so here's our miniature, and I want him, so I will tend to use the true blood for recently splattered blood. So we'll pop a bit of that into the can, and I'm going to just stipple it and then take a little bit off, and then what we will do is we'll pop a little bit on his tongue and a little bit around his face, just stippling it on. I don't want to cover everything, I just literally do want it to look like he's recently fed and that there are just little bits on there. Now if he has just recently fed, he's had to get it into his mouth, so let's have a little bit on at least a couple of his arms. So we'll just go a few little blobs on his main rending claws. And then maybe where there's been a little bit of spray during the battle, maybe just a few little bits onto his shoulders and chest. And maybe just a few little bits. You don't have to go wild, it doesn't need to be all over him. So we've been quite specific there. You can see there's still an awful lot of green. If I bring him a bit closer. Try and get as much of him in focus as I can. There we go. Then you can start to see maybe a little bit more just on his face here. Just brighten it up a little bit. And we're going to start to see that he has got remnants of blood on there. Lovely. So I think what we're going to think about next is maybe he's just propped it from this hand into his mouth. So maybe what we'll do is we'll have a little rivulet stringing across from here. And maybe like a little bit hanging down. And maybe just leave it at that. Sometimes people get all carried away and there's like strings of gore everywhere, and I think sometimes it just oversells what you're trying to achieve. So we'll stick the paint pot in some water. We'll go back to the glue and get some fresh. And this is quite a fresh kill, so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go quite strongly. Oh, and a little tip with this is that if it keeps coming out, if you just gently press the sides, it'll suck some of the glue back in so that you don't have it just constantly dribbling all over the place. So I think we're going to dominantly go with the true blood for this next bit. Let's get 2 or 3 drops in there. Get it all mixed in. Now the paint does make the glue go off quite quick, so you've maybe got a couple of minutes to work. I'm going to swap into, instead of using the cotton bud, it's probably better to use something like a toothpick. I'm going to use a paper clip because it's metallic and has quite a fine edge. Right, we've got a nice glob of gubbins. And what we will do is we'll stick it on the hand and then we will run it past the mouth so that we can then position it, knowing that the string is actually in the right place. Taking off any excess we don't want. I think I'll use something a little bit more accurate. And we'll get some tweezers. Just take out that bit that we don't want. Okay. So if I bring that nice and close, you can see the remnant in his hand. You can see it's stretched across into his mouth. Right, after a little bit of fiddling about, we've got the the blood from the mouth to the claw looks nice, but I want like a little rivulet dripping down. And actually that look has been proving a little bit harder to get, but I think I might have a solution. So here we have some green stuff UV resin. What we can do is pop a little bit of the true blood in with that. Okay. I have a UV light ready at hand. And then hopefully by the power of, I think I might just have a little bit more resin on there. By the power of UV, we may be salvaged. Okay. So I'll mix that together. Try and get it fairly thick. Right. Okay, let's see if this works. I need about 4 hands here. Ooh, throwing blood everywhere. Okay. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it down, if I can get it to work. And then while there's a little rivulet hanging down, I'm going to get the UV light on it. And by the power of UV light, we have a nice big blob of blood coming from his mouth. He actually has a gland underneath his neck, but it's just dribbling down the side of his mouth and off the gland, and it looks like he's just had something in his mouth and it's now going to drop. But also we've now got to reciprocate that splatter on the ground around him. So we're going to get a little bit of the true blood and a finer paintbrush. This is just a cheap hobby store one, size 1 brush, and we get on the blood, and we're looking at where he is and on the ground below where it would drop. So we'll have some splatterings on the ground in front of him. And what was a nice effect, so here down onto this leaf, and from this hand maybe a little dot here, and we'll just do a little, because that leaf is proud, we'll just do a little rivulet down that leaf as well, with a little splatter at the top. If I bring those a little bit closer, it just adds to, like, some of the debris has fallen away as he's been gorging himself. I think we've got quite a nice look there. I think we'll stop there before we get all too carried away, but too much is not a good thing. So I'll base the black, and then I should be putting the final finished miniature on the front of the slide. And now the grand reveal. Well, I think we achieved some quite nice effects there. just simply painting it on the plant itself, around the mouth, but also with the use of the UHU and the UV resin, getting those stringy, visceral components, which it's just playing with. It's the first time, to be honest, I've ever done that. And it does take a little bit of playing with to actually get the strings in the right places where you want them. And it would be very tempting just to, if you got some strings, to get them in there, but maybe to work with it a little bit and just to be patient where you're getting those lines of gore, so that they do have realism, and then reflecting that onto the scenery with nice streaks and droplets so that it looks like there's a spray of blood. So I hope you enjoyed that. Hope we've all learned something together there. And what are we doing? Are we painting minis yet? Hell yeah! And I'll catch you in the next one.